You're trying to help your baby focus. You add toys, you add stimulation, you add more. But what if attention doesn't grow from more input? What if it grows from how you respond? A 2025 study uncovered 7 everyday habits that quietly shape your baby's brain and attention. And most parents don't even realize they're doing them wrong. Attention is the doorway to everything else. Before learning words, before problem solving, before self-control, a child has to be able to stay with something. A sound, a face, a feeling, a moment. This isn't about sitting still or being quiet. It's about how long your child can stay engaged before their mind gets pulled away. When attention is fragile, learning fragments. Language comes in pieces. Play resets constantly. Frustration builds faster. And here's the part most parents don't realize. We often break attention at the exact moment it's forming. By jumping in too fast. By redirecting too soon. By trying to improve the moment instead of protecting it. That's why this matters early. Not because your baby needs to perform, but because attention is being shaped all day long, in ordinary moments. And that's exactly what the research looked at. This comes from a 2025 study in Frontiers in Psychology by researchers at the University of Pavia and the IRCCS Mondino Foundation in Italy. They followed 46 typically developing children across the first 2 years of life. At 12 months, moms were videotaped interacting with their babies at home. And the researchers did micro-level coding of 2 things. One was how often a baby's attention got pulled away by sudden outside sounds. That's exogenous attention. The other was how often the baby initiated joint attention with mom. Like looking at something, then looking back to mom to share it. Then, at 24 months, they measured language in a very specific way. Not just total words. They looked at vocabulary composition, including the percentage of action words and describing words. And they found a clear link. More attention being pulled off task at 12 months was tied to weaker vocabulary composition at 24 months, especially for babies who initiated less joint attention. So this isn't about more stimulation. It's about building attention that stays with what matters. Habit number 1 is responsive turn-taking. Picture a simple moment. Your baby looks at something, makes a sound, glances back at you. Most of us rush past it. We name the object. We grab a toy. We add something new. But in the study, the strongest attention growth happened when adults did something much smaller. They noticed, they responded, and then they waited. A sound from the baby was met with a sound back. A look was met with a look. A gesture was met with acknowledgement. Then space. Those back and forth exchanges created longer stretches of shared attention. Not because babies were entertained, but because they felt answered. The researchers found that these contingent responses were linked to more stable attention at 12 months. The same attention patterns that later predicted stronger vocabulary at 24 months, right? When a baby learns, my signals matter, their brain stays engaged longer. Attention isn't pulled forward by stimulation, it's held in place by connection. The next habit builds directly on this, because once attention is shared, what you do next determines whether it deepens or disappears. Habit number 2 is following your baby's lead. Once attention is shared, the instinct is to take over, to redirect, to upgrade the moment, to turn it into something better. But the research showed the opposite helped attention last. When babies initiated focus on an object, a sound, a movement, and adults joined instead of redirected, attention deepened. In the study, moments of joint attention that started with the baby were more stable than moments led by the adult. They lasted longer. They were less likely to be broken by outside distractions. That mattered later. Those same babies showed stronger vocabulary patterns at 24 months. Not because they were taught more words, but because they stayed engaged long enough for learning to stick. Following the lead doesn't mean doing nothing. It means noticing what already has your baby's attention and stepping into that moment. Comment on what they're looking at. Match their pace. Stay with it a beat longer than feels natural. When attention is chosen by the child, the brain works harder to keep it. The next habit explains what quietly breaks that process, often without us realizing it. Habit number 3 is fewer interruptions. This is where most of us accidentally undo attention. A baby is focused, hands busy, eyes locked in, and we jump in to help, to label, to show them a new way. But in the study, attention didn't break because babies lost interest. It broke because adults stepped in too soon. Researchers found that when a baby's focus was interrupted by redirection, correction, or even enthusiastic teaching, the attention episode ended faster, especially at 12 months. Those shorter attention episodes mattered later. More frequent interruptions at 12 months were linked to weaker vocabulary patterns at 24 months. Not because babies couldn't learn, but because they weren't given time to stay with one thing long enough. This doesn't mean never responding. It means waiting an extra beat, letting the moment breathe before adding anything new. When attention is allowed to finish its cycle, the brain practices staying, instead of constantly switching. And that sets up the next habit, which explains why interruptions feel so tempting in the first place. Habit number 4 is slowing your pace. Interruptions usually don't come from impatience. They come from speed. Adults move faster than babies think. We talk faster. We react faster. We shift attention faster. In the study, researchers noticed something subtle. When adults responded quickly and intensely, babies' attention broke more easily. Not because the response was wrong, but because the timing was off. Babies needed more time to process what they were already focused on. When the adult pace stayed slow, longer pauses, fewer words, calmer movements, attention lasted longer. That sustained attention at 12 months was the same pattern linked to stronger vocabulary at 24 months. Slowing your pace doesn't mean disengaging. It means letting your timing match theirs. Waiting before you speak. Moving hands more slowly. Giving attention time to settle before responding. When the adult pace slows, the baby's brain doesn't have to keep resetting. It can stay with the moment and build attention from the inside. Habit number 5 is emotionally safe focus. Attention doesn't just depend on timing, it depends on how safe the moment feels. In the study, researchers noticed that attention collapsed faster when moments of focus became evaluative. Too much praise, too much correction, too much pressure to do it right. Even when the intention was positive. Babies stayed focused longer when adults protected the moment instead of performing on top of it. No fixing, no testing, no turning focus into a mini lesson. That mattered because attention at this age is fragile. Once pressure enters, the brain shifts from exploring to monitoring. And when that happens, focus ends. The babies who experienced more emotionally neutral focus moments at 12 months were the same ones, whose attention patterns predicted stronger vocabulary at 24 months. Safety keeps attention open. Pressure shuts it down. The next 2 habits aren't about interaction itself. They're about the conditions that let these moments keep happening throughout the day. Habit number 6 is one thing environments. In the study, attention didn't struggle because babies lacked interest. It struggled when too many things competed for it at once. Multiple toys out. Background noise, constant visual movement. Each extra input made it harder for attention to stay anchored. The researchers didn't argue for minimalist homes. They showed something simpler. When fewer things competed for attention, babies stayed with what they were already engaged in longer. One toy on the floor. One book in your hands. One shared focus at a time. This supported the same attention patterns at 12 months. That later predicted stronger language outcomes at 24 months. Attention doesn't need novelty to grow. It needs room. The final habit explains how these moments stack over time, so attention doesn't reset every day, but slowly becomes more stable. Habit number 7 is predictable rhythms. Attention grows when the day feels familiar, not rigid schedules, but repeated patterns. The study showed that attention stabilized when interaction moments followed similar sequences. Play looked the same. Feeding felt the same. Transitions happened in similar ways. That predictability reduced cognitive load. Babies didn't have to figure out what was coming next. They could stay with what was happening now. Those repeated attention-friendly moments are what allowed early focus at 12 months to predict language strength at 24 months. And here's the takeaway. You don't build attention by doing more. You build it by responding better, interrupting less, and protecting focus when it appears. If one habit surprised you, start there. Like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, which habit are you going to try first? Because attention isn't trained in sessions, it's built in moments, all day long.